All right. Well, it is 6:06. It looks like we have quite a few people that have joined us. Thank you all for coming. Good evening. Welcome to Navigating COVID-19, the Entrepreneur and Small Business Owner Edition. My name is Shani Blevins. I'm the current president of the San Francisco chapter of the National Association of Black Accountants. Founded in 1969, we are a nonprofit membership association dedicated to bridging the opportunity gaps for Black professionals in the accounting, finance, and business-related professions. I'm sure many of you are aware that small businesses contribute greatly to the local economies by bringing growth and innovation while also stimulating economic growth by providing employment opportunities to the communities that they serve. But did you know that according to the SBA, that we small business owners employ more than half of the working class within the US? Small businesses are truly the backbone of the community, and right now, our small businesses need a lifeline. So we are excited that all of you have joined us this evening to learn what one should consider while fighting to protect what you've worked so hard to build. Let's have a quick look at the agenda. So once we complete the welcome, we will have the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce come on. Nicole Felix will share a few notes. Then we'll have a conversation with Lee about some tips and advice for small business owners, followed by a 15-minute Q&A session, and then closing remarks. Please note that questions are to be submitted using the Q&A icon, which can be found at the bottom of your screen. So right here at the bottom, you'll see a little Q&A icon. Click there and you can submit your questions. So one other thing I'd like to note is that this presentation will be recorded and will be accessible by all registered attendees. So this evening's event is brought to you not only by NABA SF, but also by one of our long-standing corporate sponsors, EY, and in partnership with the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce. At this time, I would like to introduce you to Nicole Felix, the Assistant Director of Diversity and Inclusiveness for the Center of Excellence at EY, and the Director of Membership for the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce. Nicole?
Thanks, Shani. Once again, I'm Nicole, and as Shani mentioned, I'm the Director of Membership for the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce. And I would like to acknowledge our President, Kathy Adams, and all the OAAC members who are represented here today for the first collaboration between the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce and the San Francisco NABA chapter. OAACC exists to provide our members with advocacy to navigate opportunities with public agencies, business development to help grow your businesses, and technical assistance to help support and grow your businesses. Excuse me, and technical assistance to help you stabilize and grow your businesses. We support our members through professional development opportunities like today's webinar with Lee Henderson, which is sponsored, as Shani mentioned, by NABA, by EY, and by OAACC. And through efforts such as the OAACC Resiliency Fund, which was created to help provide grants, not loans, to our current members and Black businesses in the Oakland community. At the conclusion of today's webinar, you will learn more about how you can help Black businesses in the Oakland area by contributing to the fund. So in addition to being the Director of Membership for the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce, I am also a lifetime member of NABA, and as Shani mentioned, a D&I consultant at Ernst & Young. It gives me great pride to be a part of today's webinar. I'm honored to do so because, one, I have the opportunity to support my mentee, Shani Blevins, who I've known since she was a student at San Francisco State and who eventually became a EY intern and staff and now is an alumni. This is one of the many great accomplishments that Shani has been able to make this year. by bringing EY's America's Markets Growth leader, Lee Henderson. Lee Henderson is a longtime friend and a fellow pioneer who I have had the privilege of knowing since our college years. Lee has been with EY for over 25 years, working with both entrepreneurial private companies and large multinational public companies. More importantly, outside of Lee's accomplishments, which he will share a little bit with you in a second, he is the father of two, so he's a girl's dad. He's the father of Kaylee, who is 16, and Layla, who is 15. And he has been married to Kim for over 19 years. It's been really exciting preparing for this session with Lee. Lee has NABA roots and has always given back to the organization. For those NABA members who are on the line, you probably most recently remembered if you attended the 50th anniversary of NABA in Las Vegas last year, where he was the keynote speaker for the scholarship luncheon and did an outstanding job. For those of you who have had the opportunity of hearing Lee speak in the past, you know that he won't disappoint. And for those of you who it's your first time hearing Lee, you're in for a treat. So without further ado, I would like to pass it over to my really good friend, Lee Henderson, as he speaks to us about how to prepare and navigate during this COVID-19 environment. Lee, I'll pass it on to you.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Shawnee. I mean, talk about pressure, Nicole. You have to, you could have just said, "Here's Lee Henderson." That would have been good. No, thanks, you guys. First of all, thanks for asking me to do this, Shawnee and Nicole. I mean, it is truly an honor. But first I'll say, I know I have a lot of friends on the line as well, and I miss you guys, and I can't see you on the Zoom, but I've gotten some texts from people that said they were going to be on. So really good to virtually at least be a part of in your presence right now. But in terms of just reflection first, I just want to just make sure that everyone is taking some time to really just reflect, rest, exercise, and just be healthy. Because I tell you, man, our country right now, our nation and our world is just it's in a bad state, right? I mean, between dealing with the pandemic, the economic realities that has come through that, some of the things that's been exposed through the pandemic in terms of healthcare amongst minorities, in terms of just the economic reality and unemployment rates of minorities, and then to come into a situation where we're dealing with all these racial issues and that we're dealing with right now, and in our political system. So there's a lot right now to absorb. And I didn't even mention all your careers and all the pressures that you have in work as well. So it's a lot, and it's a lot, especially for this group that I know that represents NABA, even more burdensome for this group. So just make sure that you pat yourself on the back for really working through these times, because I know it's challenging. But also make sure you take some time to just reflect and not get caught up in the pressure of it every day, and just step back and just reflect and just make sure that you're taking care of your mental health. I know for me, my kids will laugh to hear me say this, but I started meditating the last couple of weeks, and I'm telling you, I've been putting this off for I don't know how long, and it's kind of weird. I lay down in my office and close the door and just on my back and just close my eyes and just meditate, and it's been really, really helpful. So that's my little tip, for today, if you guys are looking for something just to relax your mind. I typically do it like before big meetings and so on. So I just want to I'm hopeful that we're about to make change. We're going to be part of a major movement here, but I also know that we're not going to be the ones to really change the world right now. Our kids are. So my 16-year-old, 15-year-old, and you all as kids, those are the ones that are going to make the change. That next generation, I tell you, is something to really be proud of. But in terms of my story, and Nicole shared it as well. My roots is in the Bay. I'm a Skyline High School in Oakland and Cal State, Hayward. I'm still mad at the East Bay things, but I still represent Hayward Pioneers. I was a schoolmate of Nick, as she said, and Tyamba. I don't know if Tyamba is on the line or not, but Tyamba and Nick and myself and Eric Bell, we used to just run the roofs up at Cal State, and I was a part of NABA back then. In fact, when Nicole and Shawnee reached out to me on this, I was like, it was a no-brainer, because I'm where I am right now because of NABA. Because quite frankly, EY didn't recruit on Cal State Hayward's campus at the time, and it was through NABA that I was connected to the firm, and then through a scholarship, which I got my $1,000 scholarship and thought I won the lottery back then. My EY scholarship through NABA. Shawnee, I think you were a scholarship recipient too, if I remember, right? That was a big deal back then, right? But that was really my grounding. And just to reflect on things like the division of firms, which I'm sure there are some representatives from division of firm as well. A lot of roots in that also, really through my father-in-law, the late Ralph Grant, Don White, Michael Steele, and some of those legendary division of firm folks that taught me so much. And then to watch Shawnee now, who I remember Shawnee just as a young buck coming out of school and us trying to recruit her, and to see her right now as a president of NABA, following in what I would say the great Gina Woolley, who again, I don't know if Gina's on the call or not, but I mean, those are some big footsteps to fill, Shawnee. And to be Gina, who was, I think, a mentor to pretty much everyone that went through NABA, was just a real treat to see you do that. And I'm really proud of you, I would say, to just kind of be invited by you as a NABA president was pretty cool, right? Kind of gave me goosebumps. But to talk a little bit about my background, professional career, and family, Nicole shared a lot. I've been with the firm for 25 years. I started in San Jose. I had an opportunity to move to New York to do a rotation in our national practice. I was in New York for 1 year. The plan was for 2 years. I was in London for 4 years. The plan was 0 years for London. I wasn't planning on going to London when I left California. And then I ended up, when we were repatriating back to the US, ended up in Chicago for the right reason, for a particular client situation. So if you fast forward right now, I'll kind of put my life in 3 pieces in Chicago. Number one is, I'm raising my family here, right? And I'm very, connected, and my grounding is my family and my kids, and trying to raise 2 teenage daughters. I mean, Jesus, it just, I mean, my hair's going and I'm turning gray and everything. So that's number one. But the other thing, from a standpoint of from a career standpoint, well, I'll skip first. Before I go to career, I would say from what I'm doing in the Chicago, trying to make a difference in the Chicago market, is I'm a part of a number of nonprofit organizations. One in particular that I'm really proud of, an organization called Big Shoulders Fund, which really dedicates a lot of funds to inner city Catholic schools. So high level of poverty, high level of minority, particularly Black kids. So I'm in the schools a lot in Chicago, in the inner city. And then finally, I would say also just grounded in my career. I'm very committed to the firm, very loyal to the firm. The firm has done a lot of things for me, and has shown me a lot of places, and just given me a lot of great opportunities. Currently, what I do right now, I've always been in the audit practice. So I've been in the audit practice for the entire 25 years pretty consistently. But right now, I split my time kind of 50-50. I was fortunate enough to have some leadership roles in the firm. And most recently, about a year ago, I was asked to run basically our middle market practice. It has a fancier title that Nicole mentioned, but it's really running our middle market practice. So our middle market practice is about 1/3 of the firm's revenue. And I'm responsible for that for the Americas. So the Americas for us is US, Canada, Latin America, sort of central, all of Latin America. So that's what I do. I'm responsible for trying to make sure that we grow the revenue of the firm for about a third of the Americas. In terms of, Shawnee and Nicole asked me to talk about kind of the impact of COVID, right? And I'm going to talk a little bit about the impact from a minority entrepreneurship in a little bit. But, I've been asked a lot to talk, with my clients and stuff around just the impact that companies are facing right now with respect to COVID. And the first thing, I'm always asked sort of, why was this crisis, because I'm a middle market person, why did this crisis have such a disproportionate impact on mid-sized companies in the US? And I always say, it was really, first of all, it's a surprise factor, right? For everybody, it was a surprise factor, the immediate consequences of that. But from a middle market perspective, which I think, probably folks on the phone, you might either serve middle market companies or you're running them, right? These companies don't have rich balance sheets. They don't have extensive lines of credit. They don't have a lot of cash. I know you're right there around the corner from Apple. You know, Apple has enough cash to feed, you know, the world probably, right? But these middle market companies, they don't have extensive line of credits. They don't have a lot of cash laying around. And the numbers are, if you look at the Starling statistic, middle market companies have about 30 to 90 days of a liquidity buffer. So what that means is that cash or things that could be converted to cash in 30 to 90 days, right? So do the math, right? We've been locked down since March, right? So that's March, April, May, June. That's about 90 days. So if stuff doesn't get, you know, sort of turned on, or things don't turn around soon, we're going to see a really, really bad second half of the year, because those companies are just going to start running out of money. They only have 30 to 90 days. And the, you know, the 30 to 90 days is fine. You might say that's not a lot of cash, but that on the normal circumstances, that's totally fine. It gives you time to react to the unexpected. You know, if you lose a customer, so you can usually rebound from that. But this pandemic has caused disruption that none of us on the phone have ever seen, right? Because you have to go back many, many years before we're all born to look at the last major pandemic like this. And it disrupted the workforce, it disrupted the demand side, it disrupted the supply side. It was just a catastrophic disruption of all angles. And on the demand side, what you saw was this kind of trickle effect, right? Because the trickle effect, if you look at a lot of middle market companies, they're suppliers, right, for a lot of the blue chip companies. So if you look at car sales, construction of new, you know, corporate real estate, if you look at farmers supplying restaurants, supplying schools, those are all the demand channels for all these companies. So when that got disrupted, stuff just shut down. And as a result, cash just evaporated overnight. So that's really what happened. That's what I always say when people ask me that question. And then when you think about what are they doing to survive, right? So I'm always asked, like, you know, what are companies doing to survive? And they're trying to find cash. You know, at the end of the day right now, cash, man, they say cash is king. That has never been as important as it is today. They're trying to find cash, and there are a few ways to do that. Obviously, there's a PPP, right, which we've been talking about for a while. Companies have until June. So if you need to get it in before June. I'm not really optimistic that you would get it at this point, but particularly if you're a minority entrepreneur, and I'm going to get to that later, because I'm going to go on that soapbox in a minute in terms of just how minority entrepreneurs are dealing with this. But only about I think it was somewhere between 8 and 12% or so of minority-run companies received the full amount requested, right? So that's minority-run companies. That's what the statistics say. When you get to Hispanic and Black, even those numbers are even worse. So, but still, you got to try to get the PPP. Nicole mentioned OAACC. There's a resiliency fund there, which I think is a grant. So you got to try to get as much of that as possible. And there are a lot of other stimulus options that my clients have been going at, right? There's a lot of tax benefits, and some of those tax benefits are not just tax like just foo-foo on the financial statements. Some of those tax benefits are real cash, like they're real cash savings. And a lot of companies are also drawing down on credit lines, right? It's almost too late for that, right? Because if you didn't draw down, you know, I have clients that says, well, I don't really need the money, so I'm not going to draw down. I say, you know, you need to draw down, because if you draw down right now, you have the ability to do that. And it's really just an insurance fund, because what happened was some companies weren't drawing down. Their balance sheet was getting worse. So they were kind of restricted. The covenants and stuff within their agreements would suggest that, okay, you no longer have that access. Well, wait a minute, I got $10 million. Well, you kind of do, but you kind of don't now, because we're not sure you can support it. So I taught the clients a lot about making sure that they were drawing down on those lines of credits. And there's other kind of supplier financing options, such as extended terms. A lot of companies were asking for extended terms. A lot of companies were providing extended payment terms just to stay in business. And then with respect to other sources of cash, the other thing that's become, I tell you, this has become so important is forecasting. Companies really need to understand their cash burn rate. And I know that sounds real straightforward, but most middle market companies, they weren't used to the kind of rigor that is needed right now. I mean, the level of rigor right now that's needed for cash flow and forecasting and looking at your burn rate is on a whole nother level, because a lot of them had looked at the obvious already. They looked at the obvious, they looked at the easiest place to cut. But what we're doing with our clients now, a lot of them, particularly the non-audit clients, is we're going through this process of, we have a group that will go out and do a 13-week weekly direct cash flow forecast, right? So that's a whole bunch of words I just used. But for accountants, a 13-week weekly direct, not indirect, cash flow forecast, right? And they're doing that to really just assess the burn rate, right? Because that gets down to like just a penny. You got to be more holistic around it. It has to be ongoing and detail, which is a little bit different than companies were doing in the past. And it's got to be agile and flexible. You got to put plans in place to make sure that it's real agile and flexible. And what we find is what a lot of companies also were doing over the course of the last, I would say about 2 months ago, and still kind of today, is looking at alternative financing options, right? So you said, what are alternative financing options? Well, one of it's more expensive debt, first of all, right? I mean, debt a lot of times you can find money, but it's real expensive money. You got to think about that. The other one is equity, right? Equity and consolidation. So I saw not necessarily my clients, but a lot of companies that were not thinking about giving up their sole proprietorships, or they have partnerships or whatever. And in order for them to stay in business, they had to give up equity, right? And they had to say like, look, I'm willing to give up a part of my company just to stay in business because at least I have a salary, and so on and so on. And then I have also seen, some have also talked about, a lot of consolidations are happening. They're starting to see companies kind of partner together. So either they're looking for alliances to stay afloat, or they're looking to just consolidate again, just to stay in business, or otherwise they, in some cases they got to pull the plug. And then, I've seen companies try to convert as much of their balance sheet to cash as possible. So the obvious one on that is for you accountants, factoring receivables, right? So because what happened, you think about a situation where you're a company and you have really good standing customers, right? So these customers said, look, I still want to do business with you, but I'm not going to be able to pay you for 90 days, and it's normally 30 days. I may not be able to pay you for 120 days. So do you want the business or not? And in some cases, what companies are doing that are really struggling is they say, we'll sell it to you, we'll take the receivable, we know we're not going to pay it, we know damn well we're not going to be able to deal with this receivable for 120 days, so I may have to sell this receivable, right, for 80 cents on the dollar or whatever it is, but at least it allows you to convert some of your balance sheet into cash through that factoring process. One of my clients, big company, $10-11 billion company, they're looking at their non-core assets. They're not really struggling, but they're looking at it as an opportunistic chance right now to really assess their non-core assets. What are some of those businesses that you have that are you're just carrying because you've acquired over time? They're just kind of running on their own. It's time to sell those. You're not going to be able to sell those for the money that you were going to get last year, but at least you'll be able to get rid of it and it won't be burning cash. Being very intentional in your spending for the future. If you're in a business right now, think about this. You're trying to cut back on spending, but at the same time, you need to spend for the future, because when you get out of this, you're going to still have to be competitive, and you can't be competitive just doing the same thing that you're doing right now. So you got to continue to invest in the future. So so companies taking a really hard look and being intentional about spending in terms of how much can I cut back right now, but at the same time keeping that balance and knowing that I have to continue to spend for the future. And of course, people are also, I would say, rebalancing their inventories. What I mean by that is, you have companies that are on a just-in-time inventory. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the companies that want to make sure inventory is always available to sell. Customers are buying differently now. So companies are saying like, look, we have to look at how we buy inventory, because think about it, this is all about cash conversion. So I don't want anything on my shelf that I can't convert to cash, and I can't convert to cash in time that I actually need it to pay payroll and everything else. So the whole buying pattern system is now completely different. The way you see shelves stocked is completely different, because I think people are studying a little bit more. How much are my customers are buying? When are they buying? What are their buying patterns? Because I don't want the stuff sitting on the shelf that long. I can't afford for that stuff to sit on the shelf that long. Long are the days gone that you just bought to stock up. There's none of that stock up inventory anymore, unless you have a real unless you have a real product that's more of a scarce product. The other thing I would say, and the chamber's is on the phone, so I know you guys have probably been doing a bit of this. So after you've gotten sort of SBA loan, chamber grants, emergency loans, you've drawn down on credits, you built this cash flow forecast. As you think about this forecast, what I've seen is that the scenario planning has been a cliche statement, but it's real. And you really have to scenario plan right now. It's kind of like moving the puzzle piece. It's an ongoing puzzle, because what will a restart look like? you guys are in California. You don't even know what a restart look like. I'm in Chicago. I don't know what a restart look like in Illinois. I mean, it's phase 1, phase 2, phase 1.5, 10 people, 50 people. You got to move the tables 10 feet. You have to be 2 feet apart when you stand in line. Only 4 people could come in. You got to have a plastic mask on. It's crazy right now in terms of like what a restart would look like. So you have to go through. That's why it's important to scenario plan, because you have to go through this whole thing of, okay, I'm going to do a forecast, but that forecast is not fixed. It is scenario plan. So what happens if we go to phase 4 or whatever phase you guys are in California? What happens if we go to phase 4 next week? And what happens if phase 4 gets delayed by 2 months? Right? And thinking through all of that and thinking about what is my cash need, because my cash need is going to be different if I can allow 50% of capacity in my restaurant today than if I can allow if it gets delayed by the end of the summer. Because by the end of the summer, I might be out of business, so I may need a loan to keep me going, as opposed to right now, I may not. So that scenario planning is really, really important. And we're seeing that's important because a lot of companies are also using this phase return to the new normal, right? Nobody's just turning on the lights and going back in the building and saying we're back at work. It's this phase transition to a new normal. And the other thing is, my clients at least are looking at really new ways of working. And you guys are kind of pioneers on this in California, because Facebook has, I know, announced this and Twitter's announced this and so on. But they're looking at ways of like, what are some of the things that actually happen that are silver linings through this pandemic that we can really start doing as a part of our a part of what we do every day, like the virtual working environment. We're seeing a lot of adjustments to real estate. The real estate market, commercial, is getting kind of nervous because now companies are looking at, okay, do we reduce our real estate commitments? Because you know what, Shawnee, I don't need you to come back to the office, right? You can stay right there and do what you've been doing just as well as you were doing it. In fact, you might want to move somewhere and do what you're doing. And you're allowed to do that now. So companies are looking at how do we do that and how do we set up for that? Because remember, a lot of companies, especially if you get outside the Valley, they weren't really set up to really handle that virtual working environment. But now that they're making that investment and going into it, they say, well, we made a big old investment over here. This is really working. So why do we all go back? Why should we rush back? So mixed opinions, I would say. There's a variety of opinions on that, but that's definitely something that a lot of companies are really taking a hard look at. And then a couple of other examples I'll share with you on adjustments that companies are making. One is there's this, and this sounds simple, but this need to have versus nice to have. Looking at customer portfolios, looking at opportunities. So here, before I talk about opportunities, let me just, because I want to spend some time on the different opportunities and pivoting. The other one is really being focused on your people. Companies that have been talking a lot about value and culture, some of them are struggling, right? Because they're trying to figure out, how do I balance actions that I need to take, furloughs, layoffs, or whatever it is, with this value and culture of protecting my people, taking care of my people? How do I value your health and safety and telling you, Nicole, Shawnee, don't come back to work, versus, you know what? No, you need to come back and run this business. So I think there's a lot of focus on that. We have a people advisory team that spends a lot of time with clients as well, and they've been really busy talking to clients and helping clients in terms of just how do you balance that, how do you bring people back to work, when do you bring them back, how do you bring them back, and so on. And then the last point I'll make on this point, Shawnee, on the adjustments, I would say, I talk about the opportunities. You know, there's always a silver line, right, in every dark sky. And I would say on this is, I think there are some new business opportunities that we've seen coming out of this. And we put together a mega trends report, a while ago. And I would say, take an opportunity, if you're a business right now, not just to think about what your business is, but to think about what does your business need to be, right? And there's two elements of that. There's how do we shape it up? How do we run it leaner? There's all that stuff, right? That's the standard stuff. But the other piece is that, what market do we need to compete in? Where do we need to compete? What do we need to go? Do we need to change product? Do we need to consolidate? Do we need to form an alliance with someone else that can build this so we can go this different direction? So I'll lay out for you guys a couple of things. There's a long list of mega trends that I've been reading a lot about, that we've kind of studied and researched. And I'll share a couple that I think will resonate with the team today. One is, I would say, and this is, when I read this list to you, think about this list from a standpoint of, if you were going to get in business or kind of pivot your business right now, what can you do to attach yourself to some of these mega trends? Because we feel, and personally reading through some of these that I've read through over the course of the last couple months, have helped me sort of open my eyes to like where the market's really going. But the first one I would share is that there's this heightened focus on digitization, right? There's a lot of emphasis right now on data, streaming, connectivity, small cell, Wi-Fi, 5G, AI, Industry 4.0, automation, robotics, everything I just talked about a little while ago in terms of companies going to more of a virtual workspace and everything that comes along with that. And man, there's a long list of stuff that impacts in terms of if you're going to start doing virtual meetings more. I mean, look at some of our tools. I mean, we use Microsoft Teams. Like a couple of months ago, everybody was kind of butting in and interrupting each other. And like I figured out like a couple of weeks ago that you could click a button and raise your hand, right? So that's simple, but there's a whole bunch of stuff to come along with that that says, you know, a year from now when we're on Zoom, it's going to be we all know it's going to be a completely different experience. You know, the other mega trend I'll talk about is this concern about food and safety and biosafety. There's been a heightened consumer concerns around just food in general. And this intersection of kind of agriculture, biotech, preventative nutrition, and wellness is really going to have a big impact, I think, on the global food industry. And if you look at just if you think about like this urban gardening, which has been around for a little while, right? That urban gardening we've been talking about for a while, but plant-based proteins, which I know lab-based animal protein products, that whole new food supply chain, man, that is going to disrupt and gain a whole bunch of market share and really change this and replace this long food supply chain that we have right now. All the stuff with all the pork plants and all that kind of stuff, man, I'm telling you, 5 years from now, a lot of that stuff, that long food supply chain is going to change, you know, when we go to this sort of urban gardening and everything else. So that's something to really pay attention to. The one that we all kind of experienced throughout, and I'm sure you guys had like virtual meetings like with your doctors and stuff during this time. But you know, there's a mega trend around like molecular health economy and preventative healthcare and wellness. And what that is right, through COVID crisis, there's a big boost in telemedicine, right? We were doing, I did a couple of doctor's appointments or various appointments, I should say, whether it's dental, I even did a dental checkup, right? And I know that sounds weird, but it was just kind of a check-in, I would say, and then a doctor's appointment through Zoom or FaceTime or whatever it was. And there's also now a little bit of this that exists today, but there's going to be a lot more diagnostic tools in healthcare facilities at personal residence where you no longer have to go to the doctor to get tested for something. You now have either it's delivered to your home, it's rented, or you own it, or whatever. So a lot more with respect to that. And the last point I'll make on the megatrend, again, there's a long list of them, is this expanded view of what I would call sort of unconventional risk. Like I would classify this pandemic as an unconventional risk. By the way, I apologize for my dogs barking in the background, distracted me. And I can't go on mute like I normally do when my dogs are barking. But there's this expanded view of unconventional risk. And what that means is that in the past, nobody was planning for a pandemic. Whose business was planning to be shut down for 6 months? Nobody was. Who was planning on leaving the office on Friday and getting an email over the weekend say, hey, you won't be back to work until we don't know when you're going to be back to work? Who was planning on all that? Nobody was, really. Maybe somebody was, but nobody I know was. So there's all of a sudden now this industry that you're going to see kind of formed around just thinking about the risk associated with that type of situation, right? And I think it's going to, like, for example, insurance. You know, a lot of companies got messed up because they thought they had business interruption insurance. Come to find out, the insurance people, they were way ahead of this because a lot of them had disclaimers that say, hey, this doesn't count for a pandemic, right? Business interruption. So like, well, what the hell do I need it for? So there's going to be a lot of stuff around just companies just planning for risk like this, because we've never seen it before. So the Shani, I'll sort of start to close off here by saying the takeaway in my view from this, for you guys, like, look, small to mid-sized businesses they're the backbone, right? And there's no time like now to support them. And these businesses, that you always hear that they employ nearly 50% of our workforce, right? So you always hear that. But I'm going to tell you, there's a big company that I won't name because I shouldn't name it in this setting, but a big company that we all know, very, very popular brand. And they came to us, it's a client of ours, massive, multi-tens billions of company. They came to us and they said, look, we need your help, right? We need your help because a lot of our distributors are small businesses. So that's how we get our product to our customers. So you would have never thought this company like say, well, I'm worried about the small business, because they said we have a lot of distributors and stores that we rely on to get our product to our consumers, and we're worried about them, right? Because if they go out of business, our whole supply chain, or not supply chain, but our channel into our customer is disrupted, and that will be really bad. So it highlighted the point. And then you have like the Boeings of the world, and I read about this, that's what I'm sharing with you, but the Boeings of the world who rely on the small business that supplies the quarter inch screw that goes into the fuselage or whatever it is. So I mean, when you talk about mid to small businesses, it's coming, they not only employ 50% just themselves, but the impact that they have on society in general, on our economy, through suppliers and customers of these large customers. I've never seen it highlighted the way I have just recently. So we need these companies, Shani, and we need them now like more than ever. But I'm gonna hop on this this other topic for a second. So the minority entrepreneurs, right? The minority entrepreneurs, it was disappointing and disheartening to me to see how this was highlighted throughout this process, how Black entrepreneurs specifically and Latinx entrepreneurs really got, I would say, screwed through this process, right? The PPP didn't go to them. They had to shut down their businesses. They're taking high interest loans. I mean, they're begging for money from family and stuff just to stay in, just to stay in business. It's really bad. It was kind of a bloodbath, and we have so what we decided to do. And part of the reason why the PPP loan didn't go to them is because you guys got to remember the PPP loan, if you look at the list of banks that were set up, those are some major banks. Well, a lot of our Black entrepreneurs haven't had the opportunity to have those. They haven't been gifted those relationships with those big standard banks for the most, for the most part, right? So if you're lucky to, then you were good, you had a chance. But if you weren't, then you were kind of messed up. So if you would, Shani, if you could put up this slide for me. So I want you guys to take a look at the slide and reflect on it. And I'm gonna, while you look at that, I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna share with you guys what we're doing. So we started a few months ago. We didn't jump on the bandwagon on this. Back in November or December, we started a program. We've been known for this a global entrepreneur program for 34 years, called Entrepreneur of the Year program. We're doing it for 34 years, 60 countries, and so on. It's a big, big deal. So back in November, we started kind of crafting on paper this program called, we now call it the Entrepreneur Access Network, right? It's dedicated for Black and Latinx businesses. That's the way it was set up. And the timing was so perfect because as all this stuff was going down, we kind of sped up and said, hey, look, we need to get this out quickly. So what this program does is it's a 12 to 14 month, it's kind of a nomination program. All of our accounts, OMPs, like for example, I think EB's on the phone, San Jose will be a part of it. EB's our OMP in San Jose. EB's gonna identify a number of kind of a cohort of companies within that area to be a part of this program, and they come into it, and you come into it, you go through a curriculum kind of, and you kind of matriculate through the program. And ultimately what we hope is that with our network of big co's, VCs, banks, etc., we sort of help you with everything from like, what does tax look like, the forecasting that we're talking about, how do businesses forecast, basically how do businesses become successful and scale? Because what we find, as you can see on this list, is there's a lot of companies. I think it was 50% of the companies that started. It says 45% of the small business owners. Now I'm reading the wrong thing, but there's a number on this slide that talks about, I think it's 50% of the companies that were started in the last 10 years were Black and Latinx, right? The problem is not with us starting businesses. The problem is with us scaling businesses. And you need money to scale. Unless you have an internet product that is not a capital intensive thing, that's just hit and nobody else thought about it, and that you don't need money because people are just going to buy it as soon as you announce it, which is 1 in 1,000 or 100,000. You need money to scale, and we don't have access to that money. And if you look at the right side of this page, it really tells you that 1.8% of Latino founders receive funding. 1.8%. And look at the number below that, 1% of VC money. You guys live in VC land right there. So shame on the Valley, shame on Sand Hill Road for this, you know, up the street from you guys. 1% of VC-backed companies have Black founders. So where do we go to get money to scale? Where do we go to get money to build businesses? Friends, family, you know, the credit union, and so on and so on. And that's not long money, right? That's money that you got to pay back, and you got to pay back with heavy costs. So this access program that we have, we're really hopeful because we partner with the Kauffman Foundation, which has a program called Fast Track that's kind of on the front end of the entrepreneurs, and then we kind of pick up in the middle, provide you access, and we have some real good metrics behind us in terms of actually helping these companies get them access to funding. We're not going to lend the money, but we certainly have enough wealth of resources and connections within EY, within our global firm, that we feel confident that we're going to be able to make a difference to this community of companies by providing them access to resources, to coaches, to mentors, to banks, to other entrepreneurs, to supply chain, to customers, et cetera, and help it, because we really we have to do something as well, you know, to move the needle. There's a quote, and I can't speak without saying it because Nicole's probably heard me saying it. If you were at NABA, you would have heard it, but it's a quote that I live by. I repeat it probably 10 times a day just because it's what I feel in my life. But Jackie Robinson once said, "A life is not important except for the impact it has on other lives," right? And I think all of us on this phone have attained some level of success, right? And we all have a platform. I was talking to a friend the other day that she said, "Well, I don't think I have a big enough platform." I said, "You have a platform." So this is our platform as a firm. This is my platform to try to make a difference. And I would challenge all of us during this time when these companies have numbers like this, with our access and resources that we have, that we also step up, jump on that platform, and be a part of this movement and help these businesses because we need them. And Shani, that's what I have. Sorry, that was a mouthful, but that's my soapbox on our minority businesses.
Thank you, Lee. That was so informative. I mean, I'm sure you saw me taking notes. As a small business owner, this information is so important to have. So we really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and just connect with us and share with us some of the advice that you have about how we can continue to press on given what's going on in the community. So again, thank you so much.
For sure.
Let's see. So I hope all of you have also been taking notes. All right, so next we have, I want to run through a few resources. So as Lee mentioned, EY has a COVID-19 resource site for entrepreneurs and private companies. I am going to click on this link to just show you what this page looks like. What I can share with you up front is that at the conclusion of this webinar, you will all receive an email, which will include a link to a survey that also lists the websites for each of these resources for you to retain for future access.
Hey, Shani?
Yes.
While you're clicking on the link to bring up the resources, do you think that we'll have a little bit of time to do some Q&A with Lee?
Absolutely.
We do have one question in the chat. Would you like me to read it, or would you like to wait until after this?
No, go right ahead and read it.
Thank you. So Lee, Brianna Wilson is asking, can you please provide thoughts on entrepreneurs who are starting their business off of the ground right now during the pandemic? Entrepreneurs who are not selling widgets but selling services.
Yeah, the service business, I'll tell you, the service business is especially tough because It's so because there's just a there's so much competition, right? I mean, it's competition everywhere, but it's competition in the service business. But what I would do is just make sure, the good thing about the service business is not a capital intensive. It's not typically a capital intensive business, so you can start it usually at low cost. But I would say it depends on what you want to do with it. If you're starting a business just to kind of maintain sort of a standard lifestyle, pay yourself, good wages, then just go and do your thing. If you're trying to build a business that you want to scale it at some point, and you're where you are, especially in the value with the resources that you have, I would start connecting with I would find an entrepreneur, and I'm sure we can even help you find entrepreneurs to talk to really run it by and say, look, give me some hard cold feedback on how this is. And the feedback from an entrepreneur is never going to be, this is not going to work, because they don't think that's the beauty of entrepreneurs. Everything is going to work, right? I mean, that is the skill. That is one of the things. That's the most. One of the strongest skill of an entrepreneur, is that rigidity to say, like, you know what, no, this is going to work. And if this doesn't work, then 1.2 is going to work. If that doesn't work, then 1.3 is going to work. That's just who they are, right? That's how they're wired. That's why I admire them so much. So I think you have to talk to some entrepreneurs and then say, get some feedback in terms of, okay, this is probably going to work. What do I need to do? Tell me the real what I need to do. I think sometimes we run away from real feedback. And I think when you're really trying to start a business like this, especially right now, you need someone to look at you and say, this is not going to work without this, A, B, C, right? And you get a couple data points, and then you start to make some improvements based on that. But that'll be my suggestion.
Thanks, Lee. That was the only question so far that we've received, Shani. So if there's others, please feel free to add them in the chat, but we could go through the next slide while we're waiting on other questions.
Thank you, Nicole. All right, next up, we have the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce. This is the site for their resiliency fund. So again, as I mentioned earlier, all of these sites and links will be provided via the survey following the presentation. As an FYI, the Chamber is still accepting contributions. So if you would like to donate, you may donate via that link that's provided. There is also a GoFundMe link, which, Nicole, can you see if you can add that link to the chat for everyone's reference?
Yes, I'll go ahead.
Thank you. Another resource is also one of our sponsors, Working Solutions. Working Solutions is a nonprofit community development financial institution offering microloans, emergency recovery loans, and small business grants. I definitely encourage you to venture onto their website to look at the different COVID-19 related resources that they are extending to the community. So if you click here, once you get to the page, there's a great resource guide that you can access. And then we have Alliance. Alliance is a nonprofit dedicated to increasing access to capital and support for underrepresented entrepreneurs. Now, Alliance currently has a Navigating COVID-19 program that entrepreneurs can qualify for. So some of the qualifications are listed right there below the bullet. Again, venture on these sites because you will find a lot of support and resources that will be beneficial to help you get through this pandemic. Any other questions come into the chat? Okay, it looks like Nicole was able to share. This is the GoFundMe link for the Resiliency Fund with the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce. So if you click on this link, it'll take you directly to the GoFundMe page, which will make contributing to the fund very simple. All right, so now we're moving on to up next. So on July 8th, the San Francisco chapter of NABA, we are holding a mental health and awareness webinar via Zoom. The title of the event is Maintaining Professionalism While Coping with Community Loss and Unrest. We all know, in addition to the pandemic, there's a lot going on in the community. So we thought it was important for us to have a session to provide some insight on how to not just handle business and work, but how to also deal with the mental anguish and the stress that we're dealing with, while also being mindful of our work environments. So again, this will be on July 8th from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Our sponsor for this event is Kaiser Permanente, another one of our corporate sponsors. We hope that you will join us. You will see there is a link to register. The link for those who are on the phone is https://bit.ly/the number 2 capital N lowercase t capital B lowercase k 2F. We hope to see you on the Zoom session with us on the 8th. We also have, yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'll wait until you conclude, but before we wrap up, there's another question coming through that we're waiting on, so.
Okay, great. So another great opportunity, as Lee mentioned, NAVA offers scholarships, and our San Francisco has been offering scholarships since 1973. Our scholarships range from $500 to $1,500. Our scholarship application period is currently open. Scholarships are due July 31st, 2020. They are due to either be postmarked or emailed. There's a link here where the application can be found. If you do have questions about the application process, please feel free to email Jeffrey Rugley, who is our Director of Student Development. Jeffrey's email is nabasanfrancisco@gmail.com. Again, that's nabasanfrancisco@gmail.com. I encourage all of you on the call to pull up the application, look at the eligibility criteria, and please share this opportunity with the young people around you. All right, Nicole, let's roll back into the questions you mentioned that came in.
Thank you. From Joseph, we have, to piggyback on the service business question, how about SaaS, our SaaS platform offering, and what mentors can be assessed in the entrepreneurial community to provide that feedback, or to be beta partners to test and provide feedback?
Yeah, no, I would say the same. So, I mean, within each of our, I mean, there's a couple ways. I'll speak from the EY perspective. From the EY perspective, again, we have our Entrepreneur of the Year program. So, for example, I think Shawnee, EB is a member of NAVA. I assume EB is our office managing partner there. He's not the EOI director, but he certainly knows the EOI director, who's Rebecca Norris. And I'm sure that sitting in San Francisco, Rebecca can find someone within our network that's just say, hey, look, you know, this person, you know, wants to have a conversation, a coffee, virtual coffee or whatever, for a few minutes. And those entrepreneurs are usually willing to invest the time. In terms of just the partnering and stuff, then, you know, that goes kind of from there. Not really sure I'm equipped to answer that question, right, in terms of who you would find to partner with. But also, in addition to that, you know, your chamber, you know, as well. I mean, if you're a member of the chamber and the chamber has a network of entrepreneurs, same thing. I'm sure if you went and say, look, is there some software people that have kind of graduated from the chamber or what have you that are still alums that I could connect with? So that's what I would do. I always would say, I mean, mentoring is it's a big deal, right? And it's not just coming up through, you know, your companies, but it's a big deal in the entrepreneur space as well. And you got to have mentors. You got to have people who have done a little bit of what you've done or a lot of what you've done that are going to be able to tell you and give you some game. You know, I always say, like, you need, you know, you need some game in anything that you do. And chances are, unless you're about to be, you know, a billionaire with that thing that no one thought about, is someone has walked that path before, and you just need to find that person to just show you some, you know, just to drop a couple of breadcrumbs in front of you to say, hey, turn left instead of right, when you hit this corner. So I just believe in the power of mentoring, and I think you can't have enough. And I think utilizing the resources from the chamber is really important. Utilizing the resource from EY or any other entrepreneur organization. Typically, one is on entrepreneurs. Typically, you guys are attached to like an incubator or something. Anyway, some sort of entrepreneur or business organization. Those business organizations have people that have businesses that are more mature than yours. Find those and talk to those people.
So Lee, you mentioned about being agile. So I want, and also mentioned about learning technology on the fly. So I want to give a shout out to Jeff Rugley, who is helping us behind the scenes, because I totally missed the Q&A box and was only focused on the chat. So we do have two other questions here. One coming from Innocent Shumba. Lee, you spoke about.
Don't ask. Do not ask, Innocent.
And I just want to give Innocent a shout out, because he's a past
That's my
San
guy right there.
Francisco
That's
board
my guy.
member
Yeah.
and one of our partners in our Salt Lake City office of Ernst & Young. So Lee, you spoke about the impact of the current events and how things are going to change. However, as you know, we only have a small window of opportunity to make these changes. What have you seen? What have you seen this play before? Like, we have seen this play before with anti-gun movement, which had a lot of support, but did not materialize into anything. Can you please provide some action items that can be taken by small businesses on how they can fight against racism and injustice?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, man. When you said it was Innocent, I thought Innocent was gonna throw me a softball, like to just help make me look
No.
good. I mean, come on, man. I mean, how long have we known each other, Innocent? But no, but it's a great question though. You know, I think, and I think this just doesn't go for that demographic of small business. I think this goes for everyone. You know, I was actually having a conversation earlier, and you know, it goes back to the platform thing, right? I think the most important. I give you an example. You know, I mentioned the organization I'm a part of. I think it's important that young you have to break the cycle, and there's several ways to break the cycle. There's the white side of the cycle, which is education, and I think constantly talking and educating. This is controversial, but I think, you know, I have, you know, debates all the time with my friends and determine whether or not it's really our responsibility to educate or it's not. I do think if we're being asked to educate people, we should consider our responsibility. So I think that's a really important point. So I think education is important. I think that in terms of the small business and what they can do in the communities, I think a big part of it is getting to our youth, right? We have to really give our youth some hope that particularly our inner city youth, I should say, get into our inner city youth. Like, look, in Chicago, I've had young people in high school come to the office that live 5 miles away from the office, and they've never been downtown, and they grew up in Chicago, in the hood in Chicago. I remember I had a young lady, I'm digressing a little bit, and we were in a big conference room, and we have glass, floor to ceiling glass, and we were on the 20th floor, and they were giggling and playing and kind of pushing her to the window. And I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "I'm scared." She said, "Because I don't know if this window is going to fall." Like, she's like, she's never been that high. She's never, you know, been in a, you know, place like with a window like that. So we have to give our kids, I call those our kids, the exposure, because we need their voices. We need them to do well. We need more people just to be successful and to just show, you know, the world that that all these kids who are incredibly smart, if we give them the right opportunity and exposure, we can do well, because that will shed some of the belief that, you know, well, the black kids in that neighborhood are not about to amount to nothing. So I think that's a really, really important point, Nicole. In terms of what people can do in terms of companies for their employees, I think this sense of belonging is so important. And I think it's sometimes said and sounds like it's overplayed, but creating an environment as a business where you are, as a leader, going to say, like, look, you know what? This is a place that we accept all, right? And we want you to, and accepting all, not just mean to say like, yeah, I'm okay if a black person work here. No, accepting all and the belonging is really making it a point to step out and understand the differences, right? Understand the differences so you can appreciate the differences. So that's kind of the buckets I put it in, Nicole. But I just say, I go back to the individuals need to use a platform. You know, Nicole, you and I had this conversation before, and we were talking about people who say that organizations need to step up more and get more involved in nonprofit and stuff. And if you remember, you and I talked about the fact that we as individuals need to step into it more and then bring our corporations along, right? Because if we're not doing anything, we can't look at our companies and say, well, where you guys are at, like, you guys need to be leading this. Like, no, we need to be leading it and then pull and then be as an example and pull our corporations along. So sorry, Innocent, if that didn't answer the question exactly, but if it didn't, you can call me.
And it's exactly what we're doing today, Lee, in regards to collaborating with NABA and the Oakland Chamber and bringing this platform to the community. And so, which is a great segue into our final question, and it's fitting that it's coming from Gina Woolley. Gina says, thank you for the enormous shout out. I'm having another proud moment for me to observe you in your element, and specifically that you're providing support and guidance to small to mid-sized companies during the crisis. I know today's conversation is focused on COVID, but given the current crisis with regard to systemic racism and white supremacy, wondering what EY is doing on a national level to address this, and specifically your role in leading through EY through this.
Yeah, damn, all my friends like giving me like some hard questions. That's messed up, Gina. But you know, first I'll say I remember the story Gina told me. And I'm pretty I think Gina, you told me the story about when you were young, like young in the firm, and it was either, I think it was either women or black people sitting around a table, and someone walked in and made a comment about like, are you like, you guys, like, you planning a revolution or something like that. I think it was Gina that told me that story, and I remember that story kind of stuck with me. That was decades ago. She told me that story, and I was like, wow, that's just crazy, just how that's viewed. But anyway, random, but Gina, I remember that story. I think you're the one that told me. But in terms of what EY is doing, so you know, I'll say, and Nicole can add to this. So we had a group. So there's a couple layers of what we're doing, right? We responded really quickly. First of all, our CEO, Kelly Greer, our America CEO, has been incredible. I know Kelly; she's a Chicago person. Kelly is part of the reason why I came to Chicago, so I know her fairly well, and I know it's coming from the right place. And Kelly pivoted hard in terms of just her passion around this, the messages that she sends to the partner groups, you know, the messages that she sent to all of our people, the conversations about how this is just not to be tolerated and how we're stamping this out. And it's been surrounded with action. I mean, she has been like, if you are a racist at EY right now, you better hide, or pretend you're not, because that's how strong her messaging is, kind of around it. So that's one of the things that's important. I say that because the tone at the top is where it all starts. If your leader is not talking about it, then people can be like, you know, she don't care. Like, why am I going to care? But right now, she has set the tone to where, if you have a racist issue, you should really, really hide it, right? And make sure nobody ever finds out about it, because it's going to be stamped out. Obviously, there's a list of things that we have put out that talked about our commitment to HBCUs, that we're giving millions of dollars to HBCUs. We're doing a lot around helping and sponsoring our people, supporting our people to go to the March in Washington, D.C. So I gave those two examples, but there's a list of things like that. But the thing that you guys don't see, that Nicole, I think I could share. Nicole sent me a message later on saying I'm not supposed to share this, but we have a group of senior managers, right? And this group of senior managers got together. It's kind of called them the Tiger Team, and they put a document together that was such an impressive document that covers everything in terms of proposed actions that the firm needs to take, things that they feel that they've experienced, inequities that they've experienced, and how the firm should address it. And everything from reviews to job assignments to training to I mean, Nicole, you know the doc. I mean, it's legit. It's detailed. It's a detailed action plan. And they put this together not with Kelly, our CEO, not with her support, but they put this together with the risk that people are going to kind of poo-poo all over it. And Kelly took it. She's talked about it. She's put an organization around it. She's created an advisory committee around it. And actions are coming out of it. Yeah, it's going to be refined. But the point is that she reflected and looked at that as like, wow, okay, the job is kind of done. So now the plan is kind of done. So let's now kind of operationalize it. So we're in operation mode, execution mode, I should say, in terms of enacting that plan. And that's the piece that you won't see outside the firm. You'll see the splash of the millions of dollars we're giving to HBCUs and all that kind of stuff. But that's what's kind of happening within our firm. And we're having a lot of conversations about it, about it. EB, again, I'll refer to, not sure if EB's on, but EB's our office managing partner in San Jose. Brilliant guy. If you don't know him, get to know him. And EB, as an office managing partner, he has a responsibility, not just because he's Black, but he and his counterparts around the country have a responsibility as well to pull the community together and have this and champion this discussion with our non-Black colleagues. So we're having a lot of conversations about it, a lot of education. And then there's some actions that has been formed behind it. That is a very, very granular, measurable level. And then we have, like, kind of, I would say, the sizzle reel stuff that people see on the outside.
Lee, thank you. And for those of you who are interested in learning more, I did put into the chat our external website that shows our commitment to anti-racism. And Lee, you mentioned a couple of times in regards to E.B. Krubo as an office managing partner and what he's doing in his offices. Just one small thing that's being done, and I won't use too much time to make this an EY commercial, but the conversations are really important. We've had conversations on national levels with Kelly, our CEO. We had conversations on regional levels with our vice chair, and we had conversations at our office levels with individuals like EB. And one of the things that his office is specifically sponsoring is a book session on how to be an anti-racist and covering all the chapters over 3 weeks with everyone in the offices. So those are just some of the small things that are being done. Also, some of the things that are being done from an Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce is taking situations into our own hand. Lee gave those alarming statistics around minorities not getting the PPP loans. And so once again, we raised the money for the grant to give back to our members to help our Black businesses stay. So I hope that you all would look at the link, learn a little bit more about the Resiliency Fund, and consider contributing. Last, before I pass it back over to Shani to make announcements and close us out, Lee Tayemba Jelani, who's also a former San Francisco NABA president, wanted to just say what's up, and it's great to see the work that you're doing and how you're keeping Cal State Hayward activism going. So much love.
Yeah, thanks, Ty. Much love, man. We were the pioneers in the NABA at Cal State. So no, that's much respect, much respect. Hey, Nicole, if I could, because I do not want to hang up and not make sure I answer Gina Woley's question, because she did ask also what am I doing about it. And sorry, Gina, I did not try to avoid that. I just forgot. But in terms of what I'm doing about it, I just say it sounds just like a cop out, but I'm leaning in big time. To be honest with you, I'll be real vulnerable when I say this. When I make this comment, I was talking to a Black senior manager the other day, and one of the things that she told me that was a real wake-up call to me, she said, Lee, she said, one of the things, she said, we do, there's a lot of mentoring that we do in the background, right? But she said, I feel that the Black partners in the firm, we don't have many of them, they need to do more. They need to represent us more as Black senior managers and managers and so on in the firm. And I really took it personally, not from a standpoint of I wasn't defensive about it, but I said, you know what, here, I gave her some context for some of the things that we do behind the scenes, which she doesn't appreciate. But I said, look, I do it with you. And she's like, yeah, you're right. But at the same time, I say it's a very, very legitimate comment. And we do need to do more. We can never be doing enough for our younger Black professionals. So I need to do more. So that's one of the things I've committed to, and I committed to her to do more and not let busyness get in the way of making sure we're championing and sponsoring our Black professionals in the firm. But also, like I said, I'm heavily involved in the community, in the schools now, just kind of doing Zoom stuff, and that's kind of how I do. I just have a strong belief, Gina, in that next generation coming up, and I will also continue to mentor people behind the scenes.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate both of you. I would like to make one final announcement. If you are a member of NABA SF or any of the brothers, sister chapters of NABA, please remember, if you are a paid member as of June 30th, 2020, the NABA National Convention will be virtual, and it is free if you register and you are currently a paid NABA member. If your dues have not been paid, this is a great time to renew your dues. and attend the free virtual convention. So hopefully we'll see a lot of you virtually at the convention. The convention is slated for July 8th and July 9th. All right, and that is it. So I want to again thank you, Lee, for taking the time out to come and share with us. Thank you, Nicole, for your support. Very special thank you to EY as our corporate sponsor and all of the EY team members that have joined us. Thank you to the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce. I know we have Nicole on the phone as a representative, and we also have Miss Kathy Adams. And one last thing, Lee, as a thank you, Pound Business will be sending you a
Uh-oh.
delicious treat. So Nicole, put your Pound Business hat on. So we hope that you really enjoy it. And we just wanted to send you something to express our gratitude for you taking the time to come back and support your home chapter.
That's more than I could have wished for, and I've been asking Nicole for the damn cake for about a year now. So I'm glad you forced her and gave her a reason to send it to me. Thank you, Shawnee.
No problem.
Nicole, send the damn cake. No, Shawnee, keep doing your thing. Keep doing your thing, and I'm real proud of you. Like I said, you know, I look up to Gina, as many of our professionals have, and you have. That's a real great path to follow. And I don't know if you do already, but I'll say kind of publicly, spend time with her, because you know she has achieved so much and has seen so much and has gone through and been successful when things were a lot harder for people who look like her, both from a race and a gender perspective. So so she blazed trails, and I'm glad it gives me a lot of hope that you are in this position, because I see her, in this position when I was a youngster. So keep doing your thing. Proud of you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us. We hope that you found this session beneficial. Again, it has been recorded. Please check your email tomorrow for a link to access the recording and for a link to the survey and the resources. Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye, guys. See you, Nick.
Take care. Bye-bye.